Today, we are diving into a skill that is, believe it or not, one of the most critical and overlooked skills you can have: the power of rethinking. And we're going to do it by exploring this absolutely incredible story of life and death pulled straight from Adam Grant's fantastic book, Think Again. So I want you to just imagine this for a second. You're a firefighter. There is a massive blaze roaring just seconds behind you. You are literally running for your life. And then your foreman stops, turns around, and lights another fire, right in your path. This was the exact thought that raced through one man's mind in that terrifying moment. All right, let's set the scene. We're in a place called Mann Gulch, Montana, and it is a blistering hot afternoon in August of 1949. Now, these guys are not your average firefighters. They're smoke jumpers, the absolute elite of the elite, the crew that parachutes into remote areas to stop fires before they get big. Their mission seems straightforward: contain a small fire started by lightning. But things are about to go horribly wrong. Suddenly, the fire does something completely unexpected. It jumps across the gulch and just explodes into a 30-foot wall of flame. And it's charging straight for them. We're talking fast enough to cover 2 football fields in less than a minute. Their only shot is a desperate, frantic race up this incredibly steep, rocky hill. With the fire closing in, the foreman, a guy named Wagner Dodge, does something that just completely baffles his crew. I mean, it makes no sense at all. He stops running, he pulls out a matchbook, and he starts setting the grass on fire right in front of them. To his men, this must have looked like pure madness, suicide even. But it wasn't. It was an absolutely radical survival strategy, a puzzle they just couldn't solve in the precious few seconds they had left. See, Dodge had invented something right there on the spot: an escape fire. By burning the grass ahead of them, he created this barren, black patch of safety. He then laid down in the cool ashes as the main fire just raged right over him. He survived. 12 of his men did not. Dodge survived that day not just because he was physically tough, but because he was mentally fit. And this, right here, brings us to the core idea of this whole explainer: the critical skill of rethinking. You know, we often mix up mental fitness with raw intelligence, just the ability to think and learn new things. But in a world that's constantly changing, it's actually more about the ability to rethink and, just as important, to unlearn. Dodge didn't just apply what he'd learned, he had to unlearn the most basic human instinct: run away from fire. Okay, let's make this a little more personal for a second. You're taking a test, you fill in an answer, but then you get that nagging feeling. You second guess it. What do? I bet most of us have been told our whole lives to trust our gut, stick with that first instinct. But is that really good advice? Well, not according to the data. Not even close. Psychologists actually have a name for this: the first instinct fallacy. Study after study has shown that when students go back and revise an answer, they are way more likely to change it from wrong to right. The simple act of rethinking actually improves your chances. So, if rethinking is so powerful, why are we so hesitant to do it? Why do we cling so tightly to our first ideas, our initial beliefs with such conviction? Well, it turns out there are some pretty strong psychological forces holding us back. For one, our brains are kind of lazy. We're mental misers. And questioning ourselves makes the world feel really unstable and unpredictable. Plus, when our beliefs are tied to who we are, to our identity, challenging them can feel like a direct personal attack. So we tend to seize on an idea and then just freeze there. You've probably heard this story of the boiling frog, right? If you put a frog in water that's slowly heating up, it won't notice the danger until it's too late. It's the classic metaphor for our failure to react to slow-moving disasters. Except, guess what? This story is a total myth. A real frog jumps out as soon as the water gets uncomfortable. The irony here is just perfect. We use a story that we've failed to rethink to illustrate how other people fail to rethink. It's us, not the frog, who gets stuck in the pot. Okay, let's head back to Mann Gulch for a minute, because there was another much more subtle failure of rethinking that happened that day. And this one had to do with the crew's most essential equipment. Right before he lit that escape fire, Dodge screamed at his men to drop their heavy tools: their axes, their shovels, their 20-pound packs. Now, that seems obvious, right? If you're running for your life from a fire, you drop whatever is weighing you down. But for most of them, it wasn't obvious at all. 23. That's how many wildland firefighters died in just 5 years, between 1990 and 1995. trying to outrun fires while still carrying their heavy gear. Investigators found that if they had just dropped their tools, most of them would have made it out alive. So why? Why would they hang on to that stuff? It's because, for a firefighter, their tools aren't just equipment, they're a part of their identity. Dropping them means admitting failure, and that triggers what the psychologist Carl White calls an existential crisis. Without my tools, who am I? And this right here is where the story stops being about firefighters and starts being a powerful lesson for every single one of us. We might not carry axes and shovels, but trust me, we all have our own set of tools that we cling to. Our tools are our knowledge, our deeply held opinions, our comfortable assumptions about the world. And just like those firefighters' heavy equipment, these mental tools can become dangerous habits that weigh us down and stop us from adapting when everything changes around us. And this failure to rethink has massive consequences. I mean, the greatest tragedy of the Mann Gulch fire is that it probably shouldn't have been fought at all. Scientists knew that some wildfires were actually beneficial for forests as far back as the 1880s. But it still took the U.S. Forest Service until 1978 to finally abandon its rigid one-size-fits-all policy of extinguishing every single fire. When you really boil it all down, Wagner Dodge survived because he had the mental flexibility to abandon his most trusted tools and his most basic instincts. The real hallmark of wisdom isn't just about what you know, it's about knowing when it's time to let go of what you know. And so that leaves us with one final and maybe pretty challenging question for you. In your own life, in your work, in your beliefs, what's the heavy tool you're still carrying? What cherished opinion, what assumption, or what part of your identity might actually be weighing you down? And is it time to think again and maybe drop it?